Y'all don't get money like me. Y'all not running drills like me. On phone them. We running them off block and shurr on them. You heard me? We running them off block and shurr on them. Maurice Jenkins the third. Yes, mother. You took my emergency funds out the dresser again? Huh? What I tell you about stealing my money, boy? Huh? What I tell you?
Sorry.
That's my money. You don't touch my money. I'm live streaming, mommy. I'm live streaming. Turn the camera off, boy. Turn the camera off, boy. Breathe it out of.
So I got the random and questionable idea to make an unofficial official categorization of the types of black people, because you know, we aren't a monolith and we are multifaceted just like other humans. However, due to our shared culture that limits our variation of character, because surprise surprise, humans aren't as diverse as we think we are, allows us to categorize the complex behavior of humans into common themes. This is the On My Mind series where I yap my thoughts into the empty void that is YouTube, and my only saving grace is the fact that YouTube rarely pushes the content of small creators, and I am free to talk all my shit because only 3 people will see this. Unless I get unlucky like last time. This week, I am making a list of the primary personality types of black people and ranking them based on their social value, specifically their social perception. This list is mostly based on my own experience and how I refer to these types, and all of these types have their own spectrum, so it isn't completely black and white. It's more like a gradient, but I'm not drawing all that. You're free to make your own, also white people are getting their own list, so let's get started. Starting at the very bottom, you have your type 1s, the ignorant hood nigga, or ghettos for the melanin deficient folks, or crimers for the 4chan users. These people are the ones your grandma from Texas or your average elephant enthusiast refers to at Thanksgiving when talking about black fatigue. They possess very little intellectual capability and are in constant survival mode, ready to throw hands or fire lead at the slightest interpretation of disrespect. One thing to admire about type 1s is their no fucks given attitude, as many of them are completely willing to throw their lives away if their ego is challenged. Logic and reasoning means nothing to this type. Their logic is, if I don't like what you're doing, I don't care what your reasoning is or how factually right you are, I'm in the right because I said so. Which can be beneficial when aimed at the right cause or correct situation, but due to their ignorance and lack of ambition and lack of general resources, their attitude serves as more of a hindrance than a general asset, or entertainment for white people. These people are often the products of shitty environments, terrible influences, and severely underfunded resources. However, one good thing that came out of this is that they are the baseline for shaping black culture and hip-hop, as well as African American vernacular and modern slang, but they rank low on the social hierarchy due to their unconformist nature, violent criminal behavior, anti-authoritarian attitudes, and general disregard for safety, life, and anything remotely productive to education and society. And they mostly serve as a scapegoat for politicians and melatonin deficient guys with anime profile pictures. For type 2s, you have the cool dude. These people are often mistaken for type 1s, but are actually better. They're basically type 1s with less criminal behavior and less ignorance. Type 2 takes the best part about type 1s and make it cool and trendy. While ignorance and violence and unruly behavior are still present, they are far more civilized and more intellectually capable than type 1s. Type 2 strike a perfect balance of assimilating in society while maintaining their black cultural identity. However, they still rank low on the social ladder but are more tolerable due to their ability to code switch and their ability to provide a certain type of flavor and energy that you won't find in traditional society. If you don't know what I'm talking about, watch CJ DeChamp and you know exactly the type of energy I'm referring to. Then you have your type 3s, the culturally distant, aka people like me. Type 3s aren't necessarily attached to their cultural identity, if they even care about it at all. This isn't out of ignorance, shame, or social influence. 99% of the time, it's not even a conscious decision. We just do our own thing. For us, our racial identity and ancestry only matters if we turn to Viltrumites or have the X gene. Otherwise, who gives a fuck? This guy's voice is funny, and Batman turned his emblem into an axe. Our minds are in a completely different place. These people are often the subject of bullying or teasing and often feel ostracized in their black identity. These are the people you see sitting with a mostly non-black friend group with only 1 or 2 other black friends that are usually other type 3s. Now, this isn't due to ill will or some disdain for other black people, it's just that non-black people are more likely to share common interests or hyperfixations with type 3s. Now, I could be very wrong, but I don't think there are many niggas in the communities of Phillian, Porcelain Maid, Iron Mouse, or Quite. I don't think there are many niggas willing to engage with SCP lore outside of power scaling, or those willing to engage with the odd question of what STDs would you affect a SpongeBob character with. The amount of neurotypical black men who are willing to openly hyperfixate on Suicide Girl, Has-Been, Dragon's Maid, K-On!, and Undertale AUs can be counted on Mikey's fingers. What nigga is interested in Grim Tales, Powerpuff Girls D, Creepypasta, Lord X, or the insanity that was Dokuro-chan and the Wicked Magical Girl series, the SSS show, urban legends, and the horrifying implications of an omnipotent deity existing in our reality. The story of Job is a horror story. Christian mythology should be classified as eldritch horror. And I'm not even going to get into the homophobia in the black community because that's a completely different can of worms. Basically, the nature of a type 3 goes against what is socially acceptable or normal within most black circles. They're not black enough to be socially accepted within our circles, and they're not culturally attached enough to care about the social dynamics of race. Type 3s are their own thing, and I rank them in the lower middle within the social hierarchy. Now we're getting into Type 4s, the Uncle Toms, the Uncle Ruckuses, or my favorite, a leopard's favorite snack. Type 4s aren't to be confused with Type 3s. While they can share similarities like being bullied and feeling culturally disconnected, or sometimes even be an evolution of Type 3s, they are very different. Type 4s are people with prejudice against their own and desperately try to distance themselves away from black culture. Contrary to popular belief, Type 4s aren't self-hating. They go through the same process as any other races through implicity bias developed by pattern recognition. Then there's also what FD Singer said.
Takes I've gotten dragged for by melanin deficient folks within the online left is when I talked about the folly of sending your black child into all white spaces. When you put your black child in an all white space, your black child, as this young lady is saying, will come home saying some wild shit about black people. That's like one of the least deleterious outcomes, that they'll just say some ignorant shit that you can correct at home. Because let's be for real, there are a lot of black folks that when they put their black child into an all-white space, they're low-key expecting and hoping that that black child develops some anti-black tendencies. If in 2025,
the reason for this is through comparison. You have other groups who seem to match a common standard of normal and excellence, white people talking proper, Hispanics working hard, and Asian people being locked in during exams. Then they look at their group who don't fit the common standard of proper and excellence, and they conclude that something is wrong. The absolute worst case scenario is that they lean towards biological determinism and begin fetishizing white people. And yes, there are a lot of niggas who do that, but that's a topic for another video. And best case scenario, and the most common one, is that they just spout anti-black talking points and either grow out of it or become an online grifter. Type 4s are an interesting breed as their beliefs are commonly fueled by anger, racial insecurity, some flavor of an inferiority complex, or even envy, and they let their biases prevent them from asking why. Why is our culture like this? Why is our music like this? Why are our families like this? Why is our environment like this? Did history create any long-term effects? And were these outcomes artificially created by powers beyond our control, or were we genetically predetermined for these outcomes? And to the Type 4s who may or may not be watching this, it doesn't matter how much money you got, how well you dress, how well you clean up your speech. If you look in the mirror, you're still a nigga like the rest of us. And this shit also applies to the LGBT community too. Like, if you're one of those niggas who be slandering your own people, you are by far the biggest loser on the planet. To quote Pirate Software, I hope you get everything you asked for, but nothing you wanted. You are an embarrassment, a waste of space. You serve zero purpose, and you should delete yourself now. Type 5. Normal blacks. Type 5s are people who fully assimilate into white American culture. Your typical suburban middle class guy who's an Oreo through and through. Type 5s aren't necessarily ignorant or ashamed of their history and culture. They just don't have a reason to care unless the situation calls for it. These people either grow up comfortably or raised in a stable environment. There isn't much to say, they're just reskinned white people. They're the standard. Which isn't bad, there just isn't much to say. They're ranked high on the social scale. Type 6, the excellent blacks. Type 6s are what every black parent dreams for their kid. They are the role models of black excellence. The intellectuals, the nerds, the engineers, the scientists, the hidden figures, the innovators, the business owners, Obama, LeBron. You get the picture. They are people at the top of the ladder. They are people who made their folks proud. However, while they are ranked high on the social ladder, they are socially below normal due to black excellence being seen as a threat to the social hierarchy by people in power, and the lack of respect from Type 1s and Type 2s. They don't have the same respect for brains as they do with bronze. For Type 7, we have the woke Negro, the enlightened progressives of the black community. They are the ones who examine the social structures that make up the hierarchy and either try to dismantle the hierarchy or work within the hierarchy to turn the tides of power. While they are mostly associated with left-leaning politics, they are often aware of the false promises and mass bigotry of both parties and are critical of them. Type 7s rank low mid-tier on the social ladder for obvious reasons because they challenge cultural norms, which is bad for people in power, and most black Americans fall somewhere within this worldview. However, it is ranked low because no one wants to be preached to, and virtue signaling is common practice among type 7s. And lastly, you have type 8, the spiritual Negro, aka the conspiracy black. These are the super woke black people. One second they could be spitting straight heat from the soul and have everyone riled up. Then they take a step too far and your inner type 4 kicks in. These are the ones with the identity crisis. Your black Israelites, your Dr. Umars, and the retards who act like black people were everywhere on the planet. I once ran into a dude who genuinely believed that Genghis Khan was a black man and black people were the first samurai. Because yeah, the infamous Chinese dude with more kids than Zeus was of African descent. And that wasn't even the stupidest one. I've once heard one of these type 8s try to claim Anne Frank. They tried to claim Anne Frank was black. I would rather hear you try to convince me that the Holocaust wasn't real. Matter of fact, are there even niggas in Germany? Hold on. Okay, hang on. Are there niggas in Germany? Okay. I recently learned that Afro-Germans are a thing. I was not expecting that, actually. I had like a whole bit for this, but it won't make much sense now. I also found some pejoratives over here, so they're mostly the same, except for this one that just translates into black person. I don't know. I rank them on a low 6 of a list of slurs. These are terrible. There's also a Spotify playlist. Wait, hang on. Are there black people in Australia? Oh, there are black people in Australia. Huh. That's a strange accent to imagine. Afro-Chinese. Hey yo, what the fuck? Okay, that's a rabbit hole for another week. But yeah, that completes my chart of the type of black people. And if I feel like it, white people will get their own chart. That marks the end of my ramble. And fuck the me who has to edit the video and finish that animation by the end of the month. Haha, sucks to be you, bitch.
Also, nobody would die that peacefully after overdosing.